Have you ever felt like you were in the middle of a storm? I don't mean a storm of rain and wind, but the storms of life. Those dark nights of the soul, where the waves of anxiety, fear, and uncertainty threaten to sink the small boat of our faith. We feel that we are alone, fighting against forces we cannot control, and we begin to wonder, where is the help? Where is the peace we were promised? It is easy to have faith when the sea is calm and the sun is shining, but the true measure of our trust is revealed when the darkness falls and the wind begins to blow. The story we are going to explore today is not just about a miracle that happened 2,000 years ago. It is a map for every one of us who, at this very moment, feels adrift in a sea of difficulties. That day had been long and exhausting, but miraculous. A crowd of over 5,000 people had been fed with just 5 loaves and 2 fish. The energy was electric. The people were in awe. But Jesus, feeling the weight of the world and the need to reconnect with the Father, knew he needed a moment of solitude. He gently instructed his disciples to get into the boat and cross to the other side of the Sea of Galilee while he dismissed the crowd. As the boat pushed away from the shore, the disciples talked amongst themselves, still marveling at what they had seen. The sky was clear, the water was calm. It was a journey they had made dozens of times. After bidding farewell to the people, Jesus went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. In the stillness of the mountain, under the stars, he found strength and communion. But on the sea, the tranquility was about to end. The sky began to darken not just with the night, but with heavy, threatening clouds. A cold wind began to blow, and the waters, once calm, began to churn with a growing fury.
The night swallowed the small wooden boat. The disciples, experienced men of the sea, fishermen who knew every mood of that lake, soon realized that this was no ordinary storm. The wind blew against them with a supernatural violence, and the waves became mountains of dark water that hurled themselves against the hull, threatening to tear it apart. For hours they fought. Their muscles burned, their bodies were soaked and cold, and their hearts, once filled with the joy of the miracle, were now filled with a primitive fear. They were exhausted, lost in the darkness, and completely at the mercy of the storm. Where was Jesus now? The question hung in the air, as heavy as the rain clouds. It was during the 4th watch of the night, that darkest, coldest moment just before the dawn, when all hope seemed to have died completely. It was then that they saw it. Through the rain and the mist, a figure, a human silhouette walking on the furious waves as if strolling on dry land. Their minds could not process the sea. Their fear, already at its limit, overflowed into pure terror. It was not a man. It had to be an illusion, a spirit, a ghost from the depths. "It's a ghost," they cried out, their voices filled with dread echoing over the roar of the storm. Total panic took over the boat. This was the end. An apparition had come to take them to the bottom of the sea. But then, a voice cut through the chaos. A voice they knew better than their own. A voice that did not shout, but held an authority that calmed the very air. "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." It was Jesus. The terror on the disciples' faces did not disappear immediately. It transformed into a dumbfounded confusion. How? How could he be there, in the middle of the storm, defying all the laws of nature? The fear of the supernatural was replaced by the astonishment at the impossible. In the midst of the confusion and relief that was sweeping through the boat, one of the disciples, always the most impulsive, the most passionate, felt a surge of audacious faith. It was Peter. If his master could command the waters, then maybe, just maybe, a small part of that power could be extended to him. His voice, still trembling, but filled with a new conviction, he shouted over the wind, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." It was an absurd request, a challenge born from an explosive faith. A silence seemed to fall for an instant, as all eyes turned to Jesus, awaiting his response. Jesus looked at Peter, and on his face there was no rebuke, only an invitation. He spoke a single word, a word that held all the power of the universe. "Come." That one word was enough. Without hesitation, Peter put one leg over the side of the boat. The other disciples must have thought he was mad. But Peter was not looking at them. His eyes were fixed on Jesus. He put his other foot over and stepped onto the churning surface of the water, and the water held him. He took one step, and then another. He was doing the impossible. He was walking on water in the middle of a storm, walking towards his Savior. What a moment of triumph. What a display of pure faith. As long as his eyes were on Jesus, he was able to take part in the miracle. But then he made a mistake, a human and completely understandable mistake. For a fraction of a second, his logic took over. He remembered where he was. He looked down at the giant waves rising around him. He felt the force of the howling wind tearing at his clothes. And he became afraid. In that instant, doubt entered his heart. In that instant, when he took his eyes off Jesus and focused on the storm, his faith wavered. And the moment his faith wavered, the water that held him up gave way. He began to sink. The miracle unraveled, and the cold, deadly reality of the sea swallowed him.
The icy water rose quickly, pulling Peter into the dark depths. The triumph of seconds ago turned into total panic. He struggled, the storm now seeming stronger than ever, ready to claim him. In his desperation, with salt water filling his mouth, he cried out the shortest and most powerful prayer that exists: "Lord, save me." There was no hesitation. There was no "I told you so." The very instant Peter's cry cut through the air, the gospel says that Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him. He did not let Peter sink for another second. He grabbed him firmly, pulling him from certain death to safety. As he held Peter with the wind still howling around them, Jesus looked at his frightened disciple and asked a gentle but profound question, a lesson that would echo for all eternity. "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" He did not ask, "Why were you afraid?" Fear was natural in the face of the storm. The question was about the doubt. The doubt that arose when Peter took his eyes off him and looked at his circumstances. The lesson was clear. It was not the strength of the storm that made him sink, but the weakness of his faith. The power that held him above the water came not from himself, but from his connection to the Master. Jesus helped Peter back into the boat, and the moment they both climbed aboard, the miracle was complete. The wind ceased. The waves grew calm. A supernatural and instantaneous peace fell over the Sea of Galilee. The silence that followed was deeper and more meaningful than the roar of the storm. For the disciples, the lesson was unforgettable. The presence of Jesus in their boat was all that mattered. The storm could be furious, but the one who was with them was the master of the storm. Inside the boat, the silence was broken by gasps of amazement. The disciples, who had witnessed so many miracles, seemed to be seeing Jesus for the first time. They had seen healings, they had seen the multiplication of the loaves. But this was different. This was power over creation itself, a dominion over the most chaotic elements of nature. They looked at Peter, soaked and trembling, and at Jesus, calm and radiant in their midst. The evidence was overwhelming. The conclusion, inescapable. One by one, they knelt before him, right there on the wet floor of the boat, and they worshipped him. And from their hearts, the confession that would change the world was born. Truly, you are the Son of God. The miracle not only saved them from the physical storm, but it brought them to a new depth of faith and understanding of who Jesus truly was. The lesson from that night is the lesson for our night. The storms in your life can feel overwhelming. The waves of your problems, be they financial, health-related, or in your relationships, can frighten you and make you feel like you are sinking. Like Peter, perhaps you started out with faith, but you became distracted by the size of the waves and the force of the wind. Perhaps you took your eyes off your faith, and now you feel the cold water of doubt rising around you. The message of this story is for you. The same voice that calmed the storm that night whispers to you today, "Take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid." And if you feel that you are sinking, do not hesitate. Cry out the same powerful prayer as Peter.
"Lord, save me." He will not let you sink. His hand is always outstretched. If you are facing a storm in your life right now, if you feel you are sinking and are in need of prayer, I invite you to leave your name in the comments below. Not so that I can see it, but so that this community of faith we are building can see it and unite in prayer for you. No one has to face the storm alone. May the peace of Christ, the master of the winds and the waves, be with you all.